Second time around the sun, the boys have found the golden goose and they're reaping the benefits. Welcome to Everyone Does Music, where today we're looking at the second studio album from 3 Days Grace called 1X. This is the second review in a set of 3 commissions from my friend Kevin, who decided to have me review the first 3 albums from 3 Days Grace, and it's actually the beginning, second part of the beginning, of the full discography dive for 3 Days Grace. We're going to be going through every single album as the year goes on, then we're going to rank every single song, worst to best. I listened to 3 Days Grace a lot throughout my life, but I will admit that this album probably got the most play out of me, purely because this is a lot of people's early emo introduction. If it wasn't MCR or Paramore, it was 3 Days Grace. That doesn't mean 3 Days Grace is emo band per se, but look at songs like Pain or Time of Dying or Animal I've Become and tell me you can't imagine somebody looking like this, listening to it, hair over the eyes and everything. You know, some raw XD action. I just did that live on camera. While it's very enjoyable to go back to these albums and listen to them in a critical sense and review them, it did help me find a lot of things I missed, a lot of things that I didn't realize were so iffy. But are those iffy things here on this album? Well, let's talk about it. But before we can talk about the critical elements, let's talk about the background of 1X. Shortly after the release of the band's self-titled debut, lead singer Adam Gontier checked himself into rehab to get help for his inner demons and drug dependence. Something that was talked about a lot on the first album and relied on almost as much as a crutch, but you can't really call it a crutch in the sense that that was just Adam's life for the duration of the pre-work for that album. During the process of writing those songs, he did have a lot of problems with that, but after the release of the first album, he did decide to go get help, and we see some evolution on those elements and those themes, as well as some more hopeful themes to come out of this album. Hopeful underneath the still very depressive outer shell. We saw more glimpses of the lyrical themes, like I said, but this time the overall energy has improved tenfold. 3 Days Grace is a band that relies on pure, raw emotion to get their message across, and a lot of these songs here on 1X come packed with a genuine sense of urgency, one that was very lacking in the first album. It feels like a lot of these songs are almost warnings. These songs are trying to get their messages out as quickly as possible, in a sense that I feel like it's almost as if Adam felt that if he didn't get these songs out with enough energy and enough rawness, that it might be too late for somebody, or too late for somebody's situation. Perhaps that they might replicate what he went through, or something to that nature. It can be interpreted as a warning, a cry out for help, or something else, and both of these options and many more are viable picks for the track list. But of course, you can't talk about 1X without talking about the most popular song off of it, Animal I Have Become, which is a song plain and simple that focuses on the after effects of OxyContin addiction. The lyrics show that Adam is admitting that he became something almost inhuman because of his dependency on drugs. He became something that was far removed from society, and I repeated the statement a lot in the first review, but both literally and metaphorically. He secluded himself, he isolated himself, he separated himself from his loved ones, from his friends, all because his focus was purely on the drug and the high and the satisfaction of that drug. He was wild and inconsolable, and it felt like he was trapped in a nightmare above all else. And it's a very justified picture painted by his past issues with that same drug abuse. I think the instrumental choices on this song as well add into the theme very wonderfully, with both Adam and Barry Stock letting the guitars lean into an almost heartbeat-like back and forth momentum. And I think overall the song is a very great representation of not only the internal themes that are being told in this song, but the overall sound that 3 Days Grace will grow into throughout the course of this album, into Life Starts Now, and a further foundation that was originally built back with the debut album that the band is going to continue building from. It's almost as if they knew, as soon as they wrote the songs, both I Hate Everything About You and Animal I Have Become, that okay, this is going to be our blueprint, this is what we're going to build off of. It's like they almost knew that those were going to be the big breakout hits right away. Skipping ahead in the track list a little bit, I want to talk about how the song Riot gives me the payoff that I wanted from their debut album in terms of the energy. If you want aggression, if you want anger, Riot finally seals the deal and delivers it to you sealed and lettered. The band never has, and I doubt ever will be, one that employs a lot of screaming and constant drum fills and heavy guitar sections to communicate anger in their songs, but they don't need that. They're a band headed by Adam, who is essentially the figurehead of this band, that can communicate those emotions without having to rely, whether negative or positively, on those elements like a lot of other bands do. They can do it in the more mellowed out, just sort of strained, clean vocals, if you will, without really having to rely so much on just the whole entire song. It's subdued yet powerful, if that makes any sense. You can put this song up against other albums such as The Poison by Bullet for My Valentine, which came out around the same time, and they may not have the same constant, intense energy around it, but the energy is just as palpable and just as easier to be felt, if that makes my words. Wow. My point here being amongst this big whirlpool of words here is that anger, aggression, and this helplessness turned into a fierce fight against oneself in one's situations is felt and communicated very well here in this song. It's an outright protest against negative powers, and it makes the emotions intent go from negative within itself to positive within this specific vein. I especially like the second verse where Adam sings the following: if you feel so filthy, so dirty, so fucked up, if you feel so walked on, so painful, so pissed off. This is a song that hits on personal levels and one that I related to both in my youth and almost kind of now as a growing adult. I'm pissed off. I feel fucking kicked around, and this is the type of song I need when I just need to like get my head within a space and not go cause an actual riot. I have that quick moment of, all right, I need to fucking ground myself, and I'm fucking pissed. I just need something quick, get my fix, you know? You could argue that this whole album succeeds as both a highly personal project and one that relates to the listener because of stuff like that. It's a song that you can realize that it's written about Adam's very specific struggles, but maybe you had similar struggles. Maybe you have a struggle that's in a whole different plane of severity, worsening intensity, but it's still one that you can communicate with a song like this, with a song like Animal I Have Become. 3 Days Grace was a band and still is a band that you can relate to with the songs that they put out and the emotions, that the stories that they try to tell. The most interesting thing about this album to me is the general step up in terms of instrumental work here. It's very unexpected, especially to see this on a sophomore release with a initial release that was alright, it was listenable, but it wasn't exactly as fantastic as a lot of other debuts. So you look at a first album like that and you're thinking, okay, a second album, they're probably not going to have an immediate step up like that, but 3 Days Grace did. Just look at the overall structure of the song Time of Dying. The band puts in some very guitar work that is present from start to finish. The chorus especially shows a lot of practicality from guitarist Barry Stock. Fun fact, this is actually the first album with him fully on board too. This is a fantastic first run from him, and you can get even more glimpses of his work in some of his more impressive work from this album, I should say, with the very underrated song, the title track 1X. The good sense of pacing, keeping up with Adam's always switching vocal tones, this song sees a more grounded and nearly acoustic vibe, but once that chorus hits, it's like the adrenaline hits Barry and he just fucking sends it. He goes from this neat repetitive arrangement that he's been using in the verses and he's kicking into overdrive for the very impressive chorus. Honestly, hot take here, this is an album with no bad songs on it. I go as far to even say that the closest thing to a bad element on this album is, once again, like with the first album, there's a lot of repetitivity and quick verses that lead into choruses. Like, you don't get a lot of varied words within the story, if that makes sense. The choruses, they got, again, palpable energy, immense energy. You feel it, you relate to it, you feel it right in your chest, right in your pussy. But in terms of verses and more words and stories and lines being added, the verses don't really have a whole lot of meat to it. Like I said, the choruses bursting on it, either explosive or explorative. I feel like if the verses were given more lines or even just more work, it can improve a lot of songs that sit on my list and on the shelf as just like, yeah, you're okay, you're good. And they could turn into, oh yeah, this is a great fucking song here. Over and Over is a song that, especially halfway through, it feels like anything can happen. But by the time we're done with that second verse, we're like, oh, yeah, it was pretty dope, but we're already back at the chorus. Where's the rest? Well, I try to keep every bit of a review on an older album, or even an album that's just like a year or two old, but especially albums that are a little bit older than that, within the mind space and the focus of, okay, right now I'm in 2004, I'm in 2005, 2006, whenever. I'm at the release dates, nothing else exists, I'm just within this album's headspace. I'm gonna step away from that for a sec just to say that I think this might be the best 3 Days Grace album in their entire discography. I've yet, at the time of writing this, and I'm still not too far after writing this and where I'm standing right now as I'm recording, I've yet to fully critique and review every single one of their albums, but I still think, just from initial listens and initial like casual listens I gave once I started this little project here with a full dive, I still think that this stands as the best fucking work that they've done, especially with Adam Gontier. This is his most impressive vocal work, dare I say, in his whole musical career. Solo, guest features, especially with 3 Days Grace. Everyone shines in different ways, with the vocalist being the most vulnerable and powerful he's ever been. Barry Stock's stellar debut is here with the band in fucking amazing fashion. And overall, just improvements from both Brad Walsh and Neil Sanderson on bass and drums speak volumes to this band's consistency and constant drive to get better. Just 2 albums in, you can see immediate, noticeable step-ups in quality. For those reasons, and the reasons I've discussed prior to them, 1X by 3 Days Grace gets a solid 8 out of 10. And that's a review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you an Adam fan? Are you a Matt fan? Where do you sit on the fence? Do you think I missed anything in this review? Is there something you want to talk about more from this review? Let me know down in the comments. Let's get a conversation going. Stay hydrated. Have a good day. I'll see you next time.